Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again, once again to our Ask an Expert online chat series event. For this afternoon, we'll be addressing the topic of induction and mentoring of new teachers. With me today, I have Ellen Moir from the New Teacher Center, as well as Jennifer Bloom, also from the New Teacher Center. I'll be facilitating the webinar, and our featured presenters will be sharing some recap of a webinar that they did last year on the topic of induction and mentoring of new teachers. And there will be a good opportunity for you to ask some questions and have some dialogue with the two presenters on this topic. So in the initial audio clip, you heard a little bit about the REL Mid-Atlantic in the webinar series, and you heard about an overview of the features we'll be using in the webinar today. If you do have any issues as we go through the webinar, please address those in the technical issues box, and our team will work with you. And I'm going to be starting with a brief introduction of our presenters, and then I'm going to be turning it over to them where they can talk a little bit about the teacher effectiveness topic that they addressed last year. And then we'll be jumping into some question and answer portion and guided discussion where you will be able to interact with our presenters today. Our webinar is 1 hour in length, so we'll be finishing up right around 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Before we get started with the presentation, I'd like to find out a little bit about who's joining us today. In just a minute, you'll see a pop-up box on your screen, and I'd like you to respond with one of the options that you see available. Like we have a mix of folks with us today, researchers and public policy folks, and some others in the education field. I hope that the information you'll hear about today in our webinar will be useful in whatever context you're working in. The next poll you'll see, so that we can get a sense of who has been part of our events in the past, we'd like to know if you attended the 2013 Teacher Effectiveness webinar on this topic of teacher induction and mentoring with Ellen Moir that took place last April. Very good. So looks like a good number of people did attend, but many did not, and that's great because we'll be recapping some of the information from last year and providing an opportunity for all of you to dive in with questions and find out about this topic if you had not previously been involved. So now I'd like to introduce our two presenters for today. Ellen Moir is the CEO and founder of the New Teacher Center, which is a national nonprofit dedicated to providing high-quality teacher induction, especially in high-need schools. Before founding the New Teacher Center, Ms. Moir was a classroom teacher, a supervisor, and a lecturer of teacher education. She was also the director of the student teaching program and the director of teacher education, all at the University of California at Santa Cruz. Ms. Moir's wealth of experience in teacher education has helped her to build an exciting presentation for you today. Also joining us today is Jennifer Bloom. Jennifer has over 20 years of experience in public education as a teacher, coach, and founding staff member of a community-based public charter school in Oakland, California. For the past 8 years with the New Teacher Center, Ms. Bloom has mentored many new teachers in East Palo Alto and led a literacy-focused initiative for new and veteran teachers. She has provided instructional coaching focused on literacy and the Common Core in numerous Bay Area districts and is presented locally and nationally on teacher-led professional learning communities, oral language development, new teacher mentoring, and instructional coaching. I think you'll find that the wealth of experience between the two presenters today will be astounding, and you'll learn a lot from both of them. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ellen and Jennifer.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. What we'd like to do as we get started is do a poll and actually understand better kind of what kinds of things that you're already doing around teacher induction or to support new teachers. So if you could actually fill in the poll at this point, that would be fantastic. So what kinds of things have you been doing in the district or That's great. It looks like a number of you have actually programs in the district-wide induction programs, some formal work, some kind of professional development happening, and it looks like most of you have instructional coaching happening in your school. And Jen and I will link to instructional coaching as well throughout the talk because it seems like in those roles you have these expert teachers, and let's see if we can marry, if you will, induction and instructional coaching. So let me begin then by just saying to you that, you know, there is a body of key research out there now that really highlights what we know about teacher induction and why it's so important. And so let's look at the research together. First of all, I think finally the research has caught up with what we've all known, is that teachers are the most important in-school factor in actually improving student learning. And then teacher effectiveness, like the better the teacher, right, the more impact they're going to have on student learning. And then, you know, it's kind of obvious that brand new teachers who just come in are going to be typically less effective than experienced teachers, and that new teachers who are going to receive intensive induction support are going to be more effective. Research has shown they're more effective than those that have received an induction support that's less intensive. And I think that's another important piece to highlight, that a lot of money goes into teacher induction, but really what the research is showing is that the more robust the program and the mentoring, the more effective the student learning is going to be. So then if you go on to the next slide, you'll see that teachers also, well, the research is also showing that induction programs offer support to support beginning teachers' needs in helping them be more capable at reaching standards and in keeping teachers longer. So, you know, the impact on retention, like if you really have a robust program, teachers are getting more effective more quickly, they're feeling more efficacious, and they're doing a better job, they're going to stay longer. And that, you know, we're looking at sort of merging the teacher's commitment with classroom practice. We want to see that the research showing that we are having a positive impact on changing practice. Just for me personally and for the New Teacher Center and Jen and I, thinking about all this work, in the end of the day, we really want to keep teachers longer, right? And we want to help them be more effective and ultimately to have an impact on changing their practice. So I think, you know that nearly 50% of all new teachers leave in the first 5 years. And let's face it, the new teachers leave from the same set of schools, right? It seems like new teachers are placed in the toughest schools, the most underserved communities. And there's, you know, nearly 1 out of 2 teachers leave the profession before their 5th year. And students are the primary individuals, or the individuals that suffer the most. And I want to comment on that for one more moment to say to you that no study, to my knowledge, has been done on what the impact is on kids, on students who feel abandoned year after year after year. So it's really critical that we fix this problem of a revolving door. And especially today, we easily have 2 million new teachers coming into the profession. New teachers are disproportionately assigned to low-income districts and compounding these inequities. And 46% of all new teachers leave in the first 5 years. And this is astounding to share with you, but that the country spends easily $7.3 billion a year on teacher turnover. So let me now turn to Jen, and she can share what our approach looks like.
Hi, so good afternoon. This is Jen speaking. And our model at the New Teacher Center really is what we call a targeted nested approach. And what we mean is you just can't focus on one aspect of the issue if you really want to have systematic impact on teaching and learning. That mentoring of new teachers really needs to be a district-wide approach that addresses student learning from multiple levels, starting right in the center with student learning and classroom effectiveness to the district and state level policy and decision making. And so when we engage in a district in multiple ways across the system in a similar way, what we can do is build shared knowledge, language, dispositions, and mindsets. We know the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. And our goal is to build capacity, sustainability, and avoid what we see often in districts, which is fragmentation and silos. And so we want to have a coherent adult learning system. So I just want to talk for a minute, what does this look like in a concrete way? How might we enter a district? Typically, we like to enter at a high level with someone in the human capital or development system. It could be an induction leader or superintendent, someone at the central office where we get to know what are the district priorities, what are some of the initiatives and the focus areas. We don't see induction as separate, therefore we want to really understand what's happening at the district level. Then you look, again, keeping student learning at the heart, at teacher effectiveness. Our model really works on strengths-based, developing reflective practitioners. We like to call them autonomous teachers, those not who work alone, but rather are independent, responsible problem solvers. And parallel to the teacher effectiveness, we need to look at school leadership. So the kind of professional development and coaching that we believe mentors and new teachers deserve, we want to offer to principals and school leaders. We also have surveys around teaching and learning conditions that we do at a state level and work with induction leaders and district higher level to ensure that there's coherence in our direction. And part of our work is also at the state policy level. NTC has been asked to advise and offer expertise in the area of induction, teacher effectiveness, and teaching and learning conditions. So let's look a little bit more at the induction model, which is part of this nested approach. We believe that there are several elements for an effective induction program. If you look at your slide, the images on the left of the slide illustrate some of the key elements of our induction program, and the right are the outcomes, or what we'd like to say the impact of a high-quality induction program. And Ellen spoke a little bit about the impact of the results on the side. If we implement a robust induction model, we know that not only will we increase teacher effectiveness and retention and increase student achievement, which is our ultimate goal, but district-wide we will build a stronger district human capital. So let's for a moment look at each of the elements of this high-quality induction program. Although they're in no particular order, I'll start at the top with new teacher development. We believe that all new teachers deserve an intensive coaching relationship with a mentor, one-on-one relationship with sanctioned time for classroom observations, planning, pre-observation conferences, as well as post-observation debrief conferences. We use formative assessment system or tools along the way to assess growth, both in teacher practice as well as what we're seeing in student outcomes. To the right of that, we have mentor development. So the first and most important piece is that we select our exemplary teachers based on rigorous criteria and process to become mentors. And then just like new teachers, we offer rigorous professional development for our mentors so that they can also learn what it takes to coach new teachers and develop their own skills, instructional skills, as well as coaching and mentoring skills. And we build communities of practices where mentors meet regularly to share their learning and to continue growing. We also have a touch on program leadership and induction systems development, and we have program standards for induction and also a phase of implementation when we're first meeting with a district and how we deepen the work and then how we gradually release ourselves so it's sustainable. As I mentioned on the earlier slide, there's a principal capacity building piece that really is parallel to what new teachers and mentors are experiencing. And program evaluation from the get-go is very important. With our district partners, we develop an impact plan from the beginning with both impact of what we're implementing as well as our results. So these are just some of the basic qualities that we believe are critical for a high-quality induction program.
And when we're thinking about a program, right, it's really, as Jen just described, it's really comprehensive. It's looking at all these various elements together. We're able to really show an impact. So in 2012-13, we worked with 23,000 new teachers and reached about 1.6 million students. We surveyed all of the new teachers to better understand how the program is impacting their practice. And 93% of those teachers overwhelmingly report that mentoring improved their teaching practice. And then let's look at retention. Like, if you're getting better faster, you're on the path to excellence early, are you going to stay longer? And what we're able to show is that in cities that are collecting this kind of retention data, we're upping retention by 20%. I mean, I just actually heard retention data from Tulsa the other day that I think was actually retention upwards of 30% when they compared to new teachers in their district that were not mentored with those that were in the program and being mentored. So that's a huge savings gain as well. And then finally, when you look at we're really trying to measure student learning, and we advocate for using multiple measures. But in this particular case, we were actually part of a Mathematica study, experimental design, to look at our model that was situated in 20 urban districts. And in our work, we were able to show gains in both math and literacy for the students of new teachers who were mentored, these new teachers that were mentored for 2 years in our comprehensive approach. In the third year, their students showed significant gains in math and reading. And let me just comment on that, because sometimes as I talk with school districts across the country and education leaders, people think, well, let's just help them, their new teachers, their first year. But this research and other research that's been done really signals to us that it's in the second year of a teacher's teaching that they're past the survival and disillusionment phases, and they're really able to dig deeply into assessing student learning, analyzing student work, really creating a set of differentiated learning experience for students. So I think if you think about, it's not just reach, how many teachers can we reach, but what's the impact of that reach? And first and foremost, we think we should be focusing on improving teacher practice to ultimately improve student learning.
Thank you so much, Jen and Ellen. I think that was a really good summary of some of the work that you're doing at the New Teacher Center and the comprehensive and systematic nature of that work. What we'd like to do now is take some time to let the participants share what successes you all have been having out in the field with mentoring and induction. So we're going to be opening up a poll that provides you the option to type in some responses. So this is your opportunity to share what's successful with respect to mentoring and induction. So it looks like Frederica's sharing that in her district or school, there's an important link between experienced teachers and brand new teachers. I bet others would agree that that is a strength of having a mentoring program.
Yeah, there's another question that I see that I want to comment on around, is our goal to retain all teachers, or are we just going to, strive to retain the good ones? So I think that's an important question. I think what happens in school districts sometimes inadvertently is that we may retain teachers that have not yet shown that they're competent, or we may let some teachers go who actually are competent. So I think strengthening the evaluation process and then building a formative assessment model where teachers are constantly being given formative data about their practice so they can move from good to very good to excellent, and that the teachers have had instructional support and mentoring, and and the due process to get better. So after, if a teacher has been engaged in learning and going through induction and there's a strong evaluation system in place, then they should move forward and continue on that path to excellence. If after this kind of robust approach and good due diligence and opportunities for learning, a teacher isn't effective, then I really trust that the district and leaders in the system should make those tough decisions where we don't keep everyone. But I think we should really also know that sometimes it takes a new teacher 6 to 8 or 9 months before they actually can start to soar. It's not that they won't be good in the end, but I think we also need to recognize that teaching is complex, learning to teach takes time, and make sure that we have the kind of scaffolding in place that helps all teachers move forward.
And if I could just add to that, there are no other professions where a first-year employee is expected to perform at the same level as their 10-year veteran next door. And what we've found is with intensive mentoring, similar to a lot of the comments that I hear in your successes, is that teachers feel supported, they feel efficacious, and they are seeing results at an accelerated pace with student achievement. So I'm appreciating the comments here as far as people feeling that they're supporting new teachers. I noticed Nancy said that her first-year special ed teachers are feeling supported, as well as the collaboration that I see is being set up between new teachers as well as mentor teachers. Setting up any form of collaboration at grade level, vertical, is a really important piece so there's ongoing sharing of practice.
And I can see Nick's question is an important one also, where new teachers sometimes get spread out across, a lot of multiple schools, and maybe did we have any ideas for that? Well, I think one would be to build a hybrid approach where you actually have some face-to-face support, but you also have an online community of practice where new teachers and their mentor can engage. Also, I think trying to, I don't know if, Nick, if you have a release time, but if you have enough time to then cluster your new teachers and only go to a certain school once per week. Also sometimes trying to bring teachers together into a small cohort, even across schools. You could be meeting with 3 teachers together. So I think that we try and match teachers' needs and subject matter area. So, we like to bring K3 teachers together, K2 teachers, or sometimes STEM teachers, science teachers. But that problem that you're raising can exist. When we have mentors released full-time, we have more flexibility. But I recognize that some districts have mentors who only have a short amount of time for release time.
One other theme I see in the responses is related to a shift in focus in some of these mentoring relationships, a shift towards student learning as opposed to what we may have seen in the past where we're focused heavily on classroom management initially. Can you a little bit
Yeah,
that?
that's great. That's a great question. A lot of times teachers think, educators and college professors and all of us sometimes think the only thing a new teacher needs is classroom management. But, I think the way we're operating is really helping your new teachers know their students well. And then creating the kind of classroom environment that's rich and trusting and where, you know, the teachers and students are engaged and working together. And right from the beginning, helping teachers shift to look at individual students, right? You know, new teachers do need to figure out an effective classroom management strategy and practices that promote autonomy and trust and caring and rigor and all those things. But I think that, you know, a one-size-all, give everybody classroom management, you know, is kind of an old strategy rather than a more personalized individual approach. And I think through that, we're able to, from the get-go, bring student work to the forefront.
And if I could just add to that, while building classroom community is really important, good instruction is good management. And so right from the beginning, talking with new teachers about what sort of routines they have in place academically and procedurally non-academic is a very important role of the mentor. The mentor can anticipate and see things that a new teacher just might not be able to, and that's why having ongoing support is really critical. The other point I want to say is new teachers are so overwhelmed with what they're doing that typically it's hard to see what the impact is. They think about what they're teaching, very teacher-centric. And especially with Common Core now, we really have to be looking at what are the students learning, not what we're teaching. So using student work analysis or looking at focal students or doing a case study observation as a mentor and selectively scripting a student will really help the new teacher look not only for the lens of what she is doing, but what are the students gaining. And Frederica, I just want to say that our premise or beliefs around our induction program are exactly what you've said. It's not a one-shot deal. It's ongoing, differentiated, built on strengths, non-evaluative, and very timely, where a mentor is not only meeting with a teacher, but is co-constructing lessons, modeling if needed, in the classroom, knowing the students and the practice really well. So thanks for that comment.
Yeah, and in the parking lot, I can see, Jennifer, that you've put something that I actually would like to address now, which is, you know, do you give new teachers to more new teachers to an expert mentor in the event that you have a mentor maybe that's not very good? So, you know, I don't mean to sound obnoxious when I say this to you, but, you know, we've worked really hard to have every mentor be exemplary. And I think if after all these years of doing this work, that's one of my biggest takeaways. There are a kind of competencies that we should be looking for in selecting exemplary teachers who have exemplary interpersonal skills, who have worked with a diverse set of students. And I know Jen mentioned some of this as well. It's like we really try and find mentors who see the glass half full, who are good problem solvers, and who can really facilitate learning for a novice. And we have a survey that we administer to every single brand new teacher, and we're able to find out mid-year and end of the year the quality of the mentoring. So, you know, also top on our mind is to help the mentors move from good to very good to excellent, right? It's a new role. Teaching new teachers how to teach or teaching experienced teachers how to teach is a new role from teaching kids. So I think really careful, rigorous selection, and then good ongoing professional learning. Just like for the new teachers, you want that professional learning for the mentors to be continuous throughout the school year so that the mentor can go out and practice and bring evidence of their successes, and then go back out and practice again, and really use the mentor community for testing out their ideas. So if we pack the mentor caseload too large, we run the risk that the new teachers won't get very much focused support. So we like to keep it for a full release mentor somewhere in the 15 range. Sometimes I see it creeping up to 18. We just have to be careful. If you're a full-time teacher and you're trying to mentor on the side, I'd say a couple new teachers max, but you need to be sure to have time to get into the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're ready to actually move on.
Thanks so much, Ellen and Jen. I think, you know, we're going to see a little bit of carryover between our successes and our challenges, everything's blending together, and I know people have a lot of questions, so we're just going to keep flowing through the presentation. There will be a few more opportunities for folks to ask their questions, and we'll do our best to get to all of those before the 4 o'clock hour hits.
Great, thanks Elizabeth. So I think we're going to really move into kind of looking at the strategies for success, and there are many strategies for success, but I'll just tease out these few. Whoever is mentoring really needs to have some flexibility in their schedule. I'm really keen on trying to figure out this time issue. I know we all complain about not having enough time, and for classroom teachers it's true, but if we can look at innovative approaches to finding time for expert classroom teachers to get out of their classrooms and help meet new teachers and see them each week on a regular basis. Sometimes people say, well, let's go to every other week. You just lose your continuity. So you want that regular time to meet each week, and then actually getting into classrooms to observe teacher practice. Like teachers, especially new teachers, they want to be rock stars, right? And they're very hard on themselves, and sometimes they're really not aware of what they're doing that's successful. So just like a really good coach, we want to give them explicit feedback on their practice, what's worked, areas for growth, and of course tied into that is we really want to have a strong, trusting relationship with each new teacher. And then finally, we want to very quickly develop both support and assessment for the new teacher and the mentor, right? So that the new teacher is just collecting assessment data about their students and about their own practice. And these can be linked together. And also, as we think about this work, mentoring brand new teachers is really a new role in the profession. So defining it, getting clarity around it, finding the most talented teachers, giving them flexibility and time to observe and give feedback and build that kind of partnership, these are just critical things to model entry into our profession.
So I think, while we can hear about all of the things we can do to make a mentoring program successful, we're all very aware that there are challenges that everyone faces within their own school or district. And so now we'd like to open it up to share some of those challenges, and this can be a great time for you to present your issues and hear from the experts. And Jen and Ellen will be glad to respond to your challenges and provide some potential solutions. So we'll be putting up another poll, and please feel free to share your ideas here. Ellen and Jen, while we're waiting for the participants to type, maybe we could touch on one of the questions that was over in the parking lot. I think one of the earlier questions was related to teacher evaluation systems and what New Teacher Center has been doing in that area that could help educators to structure their new teacher evaluation systems. I don't know if you want to speak to that now.
Well, this is Jen. One thing I want to say, our work is about ongoing continuous improvement, and it's really a strengths-based model, as I said before, that is not usually tied to evaluation. But having said that, when we go into a district, we want to make sure that our work is aligned with what the district is doing. And so if a district, for example, is using Charlotte Danielson framework for evaluation, we want to make sure that our model and our framework aligns with the district's teaching and learning framework. Typically, we see our roles as support and non-evaluative. However, there have been some pilots where some mentors have been involved in evaluation. In Hillsborough or in Florida, I'm thinking of one example where some of the new teacher mentors are part of an evaluation team, not of their mentees, but of other mentees. And the reason why is some of the site administrators don't feel that they have the instructional knowledge or the skills and observation and feedback that some of these highly trained mentors have, so they're part of that process. But typically, we want to make sure our work is aligned and supportive and not related to evaluation.
Yeah, I think that's right, Jen, and I would just add just a couple more points and just say hi to Colleen on the phone as well. I think we've learned so much more about accelerating the development of new teachers, and as Jen's saying, the kind of assessments that we're using really are the kind of assessments that principals would benefit from learning how to use as well. So I think that I think one of you also posted, the important role of principals in making some decisions that ultimately help new teachers have more support and give more flexibility to the mentor. So I think on the teacher evaluation side, as Jen said, we're really teeing up new teachers and their mentors to be aligned and tightly coupled with the evaluation system. And in cases like Hillsborough and other places where the labor management relationships are such that they actually want mentors to be doing some work in teacher evaluation, I think they're ready to go.
I want to comment on something that Linda brought up because this is where teachers feel they're being evaluated by the mentor and sharing information in a negative way with admin. At the beginning of our mentor professional development, we talk a lot, and it's ongoing as well, is what is the role in communication and coordination between a mentor and a site admin? And we tell new teachers and mentors that their relationship is confidential. So one sure way to break the relational trust is in determining what information that you're sharing with the administrator. Now, administrators want to know what's happening with their new teachers, and it's reasonable to think that a mentor will check in with the site administrator. However, sharing neutral information, sharing what your focus is, what goals you're working on, how much time, and neutral information is what we would advocate you share with administrators instead of subjective or opinion or biased information about how you feel that teacher is doing. So I feel like that's an important distinction in what you communicate and how you communicate as a mentor with school admin.
Yeah, and I really agree with your point, Jen. I think tied to it is a question that Yvonne is asking, which is really, she's both a mentor and an evaluator, and after the first evaluation, the relationship seems to change. And did we have any ideas on that? And I would say in my role when I directed teacher education, I used to supervise student teachers, and I thought of myself as both an evaluator and a supervisor. And, as an evaluator and as someone who was really committed to helping my new teachers get better. And so I think just continuing to emphasize that point, that really learning to teach is a continuous learning process, and that, you're going to learn best through good, solid evaluation feedback, both formative and summative, and just keep working on that relationship and assuring the new teacher that you're there to help them be the best that they can. I often focus on students, right? Students deserve the best teachers, and we're working together to try and help accelerate that new teacher's development so their kids can benefit. And often focusing on kids and the students and what you see the students doing, and even in your observation feedback, being a bit more neutral, right? Really using evidence, not opinion, but collecting data, using the evidence, and then sharing that with new teachers. So often new teachers will say, wow, I had no idea I was ignoring the back third of the class, or other kinds of things that they might get from good, solid evaluation.
And to build on what Ellen's saying, I just want to share another reason why it's important as a mentor to share evidence-based data and let the new teacher come to their own conclusions. We don't want to create a dependent relationship where a new teacher sees a more experienced teacher, their mentor, as the expert who's just going to come in and fix them, help them, enable them, or tell them what to do. We see the mentor as a thought partner who can facilitate the new teacher's thinking, interpretation, and analysis of the data, and together in a collaborative way, in a collaborative stance, offer some considerations that the new teacher might choose. We don't want to create a reliant relationship. I want to respond to something that I hear coming up with time, money, and Nick bringing up distance again. And while our gold seal, if you will, model, it really promotes one-on-one regular coaching of new teachers. We have seen, because of time and budget, where mentors need to bring a small cohort of new teachers together to coach and to share their practice, and especially with distance and time. And one way that could support multiple new teachers is bringing video of the new teachers' practice and observing it together and sharing and learning from each other's dilemmas of practice, if you will. Not ideal, but that is one way, considering what might be a next step, as well as advocating at the site and district level for sanctioned time for a lower caseload as well.
Let's see, I'm just seeing there's some other questions that maybe we've missed. You know, I saw something about a disconnect between the teachers. You know, sometimes we see new teachers coming out from colleges and universities from pre-service programs, and they're placed in a school, you know, maybe in a school with high needs students and you know, really underserved kids in the community. And what we see is that the new teachers may not be prepared for that kind of a teaching experience. So I really advocate that in the student teaching programs that we start to place new teachers strategically in the most diverse schools where they can actually acquire the capabilities that they need. Another thing, though, in our model, as Jenna shared, is we've actually, in our full release, mentors, we have them more as itinerant, right, where they're going off and assigned to a caseload of brand new teachers in a subset of schools. Now, it is school-based because we're working closely with the teacher and with his or her colleagues at the grade level or in the department, and we're working closely with the principal. But the teacher isn't a mentor from that school. And what we have found is that it does give new teachers more of a sense of privacy, if you will, that they can really talk more freely and openly about their tensions or dilemmas. They can, you know, they can actually feel like whatever they're sharing isn't going to be spread throughout a school. Now that wouldn't necessarily happen, but I think that was one of our ideas early on, was that new teachers are so vulnerable as they're learning to teach. It's such a complex profession that to give them that kind of sense of a mentor who can really hold in confidence whatever they're hearing has been something that's been important in our work.
Ellen, I think that's a great segue into talking a little bit about some of the strategies that you suggest for overcoming challenges. So we'll wrap up this poll.
Great. So thank you. I think, oh, that's you, Jen. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we know that a lot of schools or districts engage in some sort of new teacher support or work that they call induction, and yet realistically, many times it's what we would consider induction light. Perhaps it's a summer orientation or 1 or 2 meetings to discuss key concerns or concepts, as we heard before, you know, getting to know your students or classroom management. But a key strategy in overcoming some of the challenges that we heard, first of all, is ensuring that there's ongoing continuous PD, professional development, and support for both new teachers, new mentors, as well as new principals and induction leaders. And not just ongoing. We believe that there needs to be formative assessment tools and processes built in, that mentors and new teachers have an opportunity to convene and to really share in a community of practice. We have to keep learning going. We believe it's never done. And therefore, you can modify and adapt what you're seeing in the classroom together in a community. The second area that we really feel is critical in overcoming challenges is having this systems-wide approach. What supports are in place, not just for new teachers and all teachers. So in one of the polls earlier, it seems that 100% of the folks participating have instructional coaches. That is an ideal strategy to support both new teachers and veteran teachers. In our most desired state, all teachers are receiving instructional professional development and coaching that's based on adult learning principles, that is strengths-based, that uses evidence-based data, observation of practice as well as artifacts, and aligns the way people across the system are supported with site professional development, opportunities for rich collaboration, vertical learning opportunities, really what we'd like to think of as seamless professional interaction. So thinking about where you are and the desired state, thinking about what next steps or small wins can you take to provide a more integrated adult learning system. And finally, we haven't commented on this enough, but one of the impacts of a robust, comprehensive induction model is the teacher leadership piece. So right now, with new teachers and new mentors, we've seen that we're growing potential and opportunity within a system. Mentors do need to interface with site administrators. Oftentimes, they convene groups of teacher collaboration. We've seen mentors not only facilitate groups of teachers, but taking on professional development design and delivery for new teachers, or even all teachers. As well as new teachers we've mentored usually step up into leadership roles within their first 3 years on school committees, or if not formally, informally. So we need to think about the potentials and the opportunities to align a system that one of the challenges, one of the strategies for overcoming challenges is emerging teacher leaders.
Thank you so much, Jen. I think that was some helpful information to add to what you've already shared throughout the webinar today. As we're getting close to the end of our webinar, we do want to open it up once again to participants for one more question. As a result of the information you've heard today, shared both by our presenters and the colleagues that you have also on the line, we'd like to hear a little bit about what action steps you plan to take and what maybe small steps or big steps can you go out and improve on your systems as a result of what you've heard. You should see a poll come up and you can respond there. And Ellen or Jen, it might be a good time. I see Linda has a question in the parking lot related to, I think what she's asking about is how the new teacher center selects the schools that you work with, and in terms of the work I think she's doing in some urban schools, the nature of those schools and the programs are so prescriptive that the teachers are having a challenge with that approach. And I'm reading her question to ask a little bit about your approach to that and your thinking on that.
Yes, I mean, Linda, you're raising an important question. I'm optimistic, hopefully I'm right, that we're moving away from such prescriptive classroom practices and moving much more into the Common Core, which is going to require all kids to think, collaborate, inquire, right? And as opposed to just fill in the bubbles. So we've been in that situation. In our work, we work primarily with the school district, and they either have us work with every new teacher in every school in the district, or in the most underserved schools, we work in just a sample of schools. We very rarely go school by school. But I think that what we have found under No Child Left Behind, and when we were working in a district and districts that were very prescriptive, was that you try your best to help new teachers personalize their instruction, know their students well, and individualize accordingly and create interventions. I mean, I think there is a tension, and it's kind of funny. We had these Scottish educators coming to visit us one time, and they said they felt sorry for the mentors. And the reason they felt sorry was just the point you were raising, is that we mentors, or the mentors, obviously know that a prescriptive approach to teaching and learning is not right, and it won't stick, it won't last, and we'll still find the same fourth grade dip in reading, but that instead we really need a much more robust and thoughtful approach to teaching and learning. And they could see that the mentors were sometimes caught between what they knew was best and what was being required. So I don't have an easy answer except to say I'm hoping that school districts are changing and the classroom practices are advancing. And at the same time, if they're not, I think the onus is on expert teachers and mentors to be able to really highlight for new teachers the problems with the systems that they're working in and try and help them enhance those approaches.
And having mentored in that sort of climate for 6+ years, I will just echo what Ellen said and also say that the Common Core is a great entry point for changing the way in which we engage with teachers and teachers engage with students. If we would expect that students are going to be critical thinkers and problem solvers, collaborators, and solid communicators, then we need to be sure that we're modeling that with our adult learners as well at all levels of the system. So yes, Steve, I'm agreeing with you. Mentors have a role. I do think that we like to think of mentors as both teacher developers and culture shapers. And so in that responsibility, I think that it is a mentor's job to share what barriers there are to effective teaching and learning in the school conditions, just like you mentioned.
I'm seeing a lot of great action steps related to gathering evidence and really focusing on some of those aspects of student learning that we can see evidenced in the classroom, and I think that that's a great start for folks and kind of a shift that we talked about a little bit earlier. We're going to pull out those action steps now and provide one more opportunity for folks to ask any last-minute questions. I know lots of people have been posting in the parking lot, but if you have any other burning questions for Ellen or Jen, this is your opportunity. I will mention that beyond today's webinar, we will share in just a few slides a forum that we have open for the continued discussion on this topic and for all of our teacher effectiveness topics. But if you do have additional questions or want to share some ideas that are working in your school or district, it's a great place to go and connect with those of you who are on this webinar today, and others, you may want to share that information with them. It can be a great place for you to learn and grow in your role and to discuss with people who may not be in your immediate geographic context. Ellen or Jen, I have one question that someone asked in the registration prior to the event that is interesting. And, we're looking at a little bit more about the effectiveness of mentoring programs, and you talked a little bit about New Teacher Center's research on that and how you deem your programs to be effective. But in maybe a school setting or at the district level, what kind of data can folks collect to demonstrate the effectiveness of their mentoring program or their induction program?
Great, that's great. Thanks for raising that question. So, first of all, we need to figure out in a lot of school districts who the new teachers are. I know it sounds silly, but in some large urban districts, it's hard to know. So find the new teachers, and then I think it's very easy to track retention, right? And so you can build a system just to track retention, and what we advocate is that, when teachers leave, do exit interviews with them to better understand why they're leaving. In addition, I think it's important to constantly track the quality of the mentoring. Is the mentoring having an impact on student learning and on teacher development and student learning? And so I think getting feedback on the quality of the program and then on the individual mentoring. If I had my way, I'd do it 3 times a year, right? Like quarterly, or after the fall, and then after sometime in the spring, and then toward the end of the year, because I think that gives you feedback that helps keep the program at its cutting edge. Also, every school district has benchmark assessments. I'd build them into a system of seeing if new teachers, students are meeting those assessments. how many are at standard, above or below, and then really working to see over time if we're making shifts, if kids that are below are moving forward. And then, of course, we're all going to eventually have a new set of standardized test scores, something that's going to be connected with assessments rather than it'll be connected with Common Core. We should be able to use those as a way to measure the effectiveness of the program. But I'm going to be just very simple here for a second and say to you, teachers march with their feet, right? If the program is good, they stay, they want to meet their mentor, they're valuing it, they talk about the work. And if the program is not good, they are constantly, they may criticize it or they may avoid these learning opportunities. So it's incumbent on us, upon us all, and I see that in many of the comments that you guys have been making, that we want to build high quality induction programs. There's no point in putting dollars into a program that's mentoring light or induction light, right? We just won't get the payoff. So I think those are a set of things that folks could begin to think about collecting.
That's great. Thanks so much, Ellen. Well, our time has quickly come to a close. I'm just going to do a few wrap-up slides and let people get on their way for today. So if you do have other questions and want to touch base with Ellen or Jen, here's the general information for the new Teacher Center. You can check out their website or email them there, but you can also get directly in touch with Ellen or Jen via their personal email. And if you have questions for us about the Teacher Effectiveness Series, you can certainly be in touch with me. As I mentioned, we do have these forums on teacher effectiveness, and we hope you'll take a look there and start to engage in conversation and discussion with your colleagues across the states and continue what you've learned today. We do hope you'll attend our upcoming webinars, both for the Ask an Expert online chat series. Our next event will be April 29th. We'll be talking about professional development with Dr. Hilda Borko, and we will be having our first teacher effectiveness webinar for this year next Thursday, March 27th, and we'll be touching on the topic of instructional coaching related to students with disabilities. So the effectiveness of teachers in working with students with disabilities with Dr. Jackie Kearns. At this time, we'll be linking you up to our feedback survey, and we hope you'll take a few moments to respond to that. Your feedback is really valuable to us in ensuring that we have the best webinars to put forth for you, and we hope that you'll take the time to complete that and have a great afternoon.